Hi, I'm Dennis Pollock. Welcome to Beat Diabetes, and today we're going to take up the subject of bread for diabetics. Can diabetics eat bread? And the answer is no, and yes, sort of. First, let's just talk about bread in general and compare the kind of carbohydrate load you get with different breads. For the diabetic, he or she must always be concerned with the amount of carbs they eat because carbs raise blood sugar. So white flour, standard old white flour, a cup of it is 95 grams of carbs with 3 grams of fiber. Very, very little fiber, lots of carbs, and not a good thing. Those carbs are going to convert to sugar in no time at all once you eat them. White bread, not a good thing. And sadly, so much of our pastries and treats, the dinner rolls, you go to an Italian restaurant, the first thing they bring you out is a big basket full of rolls you can munch on while you wait for your main dish. And then you get that dish and you find out it's, chances are it's going to be involved with noodles. Anyway, white flour, not good. Whole wheat flour, some better. 87 grams of carbs for a cup. 15 grams are fiber, so you're talking 72 net grams for a cup of whole wheat flour. There's a definite improvement. Sadly, it's just not enough. Now, jumping down to soy flour, and I have used soy flour in the past, it is significantly better than either white or wheat flour. 38 grams of carbs per cup, and 18 of those are fiber, so you're down to 20 net grams of carbs. Think about that. With white flour, you're at 92 net grams for a cup, and with soy flour, you're at 20. So, I mean, it's not even a fourth of what you'd get from white flour. Soy flour is tremendously improved over white flour when it comes to its spiking ability. But hold it a minute. There is a better flour still in terms of carbs and glucose spiking properties, and that is the fabulous, famous star of the keto/diabetes flours, and that is almond flour. Almond flour has 24 grams of carbs for a cup, total grams, but 14 of those are fiber, so you're talking about 10 net grams of carbs per cup of almond flour. Now, compare that with white flour, 92 net grams, and almond flour, 10. You're cutting your carbs by something like 85% or so when you go for almond flour versus white flour. I mean, you're just slashing them, almost a tenth. If you go to YouTube, which you happen to be on right now, but if you go to the search engine on YouTube, and you type in keto bread or bread for diabetics, but keto bread would probably be the best thing to search for, and you search that, I mean, you'll find more recipes for lower carb breads than you could use in a lifetime. And you're bound to like some of them. So they're all over the place, but there is a bit of a problem. Sometimes they'll tell you how to make it in a big standard bread pan. And you do it in the oven. It has a lot of ingredients to it. It's kind of depressing to even think about. And sometimes in these recipes, they'll say things like, fold some egg whites into your mixture. And I hate it whenever I hear that. It just turns me off. I'm like, I don't want to fold any egg whites. What does that even mean to fold? I mean, I kind of get the idea. But I don't like to have to fold egg whites into anything. So I like to put stuff in a pan or in a bowl and just stir it around until it's done. I don't like this folding business. But anyway, it's complicated. It takes a lot of time. It has a lot of ingredients. I don't go for that so much. And then you've got microwave breads, and there's lots of keto microwave type breads. And they aren't bad, but the problem with these is that they come out kind of wimpy and sort of pale and white, and they just have no crust to them. They have nothing that looks even remotely like a crust. And you just get the feeling you're not real bread. You're just not quite what I'm looking for. As I said, they don't taste too bad. A lot of people that will tell you how to make bread, keto bread, in a microwave will then go on to say, and then you cut it in half or you cut it in slices and you put it in the toaster and then you get it nice and it's got a brown and it feels like more like real bread or real toast. So that can work, but that's an extra step. And one of the things that I have come to see is that you can take these keto bread recipes, almost all of them, I won't say every one, but most of them, and instead of making it in a pan, you can just make a smaller amount, and you can use one of these babies. This, a lot of the keto folks will call this a chaffle maker. The truth is, that's not its name. It's actually a mini waffle maker. And the neat thing about these is they make small portions, and they'll do it in about 5 minutes. So rather than preheating your oven, getting it up to the right temperature, and waiting 25 minutes or so at 350, you can put your mixture in here, close the lid. Once this does have to preheat, but it takes like 2 minutes to do that, and 5 minutes later you're done. And I've got a big one of these. I call it a chaffle maker. It's really just a mini waffle maker. I've got a big one that can do 4 at a time, and then I've got like 3 smaller ones, so I can make 7 at a time. What's the point of that? Well, that means in 5 minutes time, using all 7. I've made 7 different chaffles, enough to probably last me a week, because it's not like I eat them at every meal. So there's a recommendation. Get yourself several chaffle makers if you can. I know if you live in some remote village in Africa or some mountaintop in India, you probably can't get them. But if you can get them, get them. If not, do it the old-fashioned way and bake them on the stove or in the oven. Now, to me, chaffles, and these are chaffles, by the way. I made some other versions that are not really chaffles, but this is. And to me, chaffles are about as good as I'll ever need. If it wasn't for diabetes, I wouldn't be doing this. I would just be satisfied with chaffles. They satisfy me. I like the taste. They work for all kinds of things. But I just thought, well, let's see what alternatives there are. I found a recipe by a lady named Melanie. She's got a YouTube channel called After the Weight. She lost 100 pounds. She's not really keto. She does eat things that most keto people would never eat, but she's managed to lose weight. And so she has a bread recipe that is, in fact, a keto recipe, even though she's not totally keto. And it involves, well, let's just talk about what it involves. In Melanie's original version, you blend 1 egg in a bowl. Add in a ½ teaspoon of baking powder. Add 3 tablespoons of almond flour, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and then I added some salt, although she didn't call for it. You mix it all together, you pour it in your waffle maker, and wait for about 5 minutes, and here's what you get. I was surprised. It has a nice light golden look to it, good texture, flexible, feels like bread, looks like bread, and even tastes like bread. So I made this recipe after Melanie's instructions. The only change I made for that first batch was I added some salt. She didn't even mention salt. And I like the way they came out. They came out somewhat flexible, but they had a little bit of a golden tan to them, so they didn't look too wimpy. They didn't feel too wimpy. They actually came out a little stiffer, a little bit crisper than chaffles usually do. Of course, it depends on how long you leave them in the waffle maker. So I made it by her recipe, which is basically 3 tablespoons of almond flour and an egg and some baking powder, and that's a little olive oil. Then I made some changes, and I did a second batch, and let's talk about that. For the second modified batch, I made it as before, but I substituted 1 tablespoon of golden flaxseed for 1 of the tablespoons of almond flour. I added about a 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds, and I used garlic salt instead of the regular salt. So these are similar to chaffles, but they have no cheese. They do have an egg, but they have no cheese, and they use other ingredients. So if you are bugged by the cheesy flavor of a chaffle, which I don't think they really have much cheesy flavor, at least not the way I make them. But if you don't want cheese at all, the shredded cheese of a chaffle, you can do it this way. And I don't have the second batch, the full one. They only made, her recipe only made like 1.5. This is the half. I've taken a couple bites just to sample it. But the full one that it made, I had for dinner tonight, and here's how I had it. This was, as you can see, an open-faced hamburger with picante sauce, a slice of tomato, and lettuce on top. This keto bun proved every bit as satisfactory as a regular nasty white flour bun. And then there's my version of the chaffle, and here's how I do those. My Dennis Pollock version of the chaffle involves 2 blended eggs with 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese, 2/4 cups of almond flour, 1.5 quarter cups of soy flour, 3.5 quarter cups of heavy cream, and then mix that batch very, very well. Bake for about 5 minutes in a waffle maker. So as you can see, I added a lot of ingredients and heaped it up to make a big batch, and that way I can use all my 7 chaffle makers. Actually, it's 4, but one of them makes 4 at a time, and then 3 singles. And I can do them all at once. Actually, it made 8, so I ended up making a second one. And that's going to do me for a good long while. So what can you do with these things? Well, you can do all kinds of things. Number one, I've used them for years as a strawberry shortcake. And take about 3 strawberries, which are only about 1 gram of carbs per strawberry. Chop them up, mash them up a little bit, and you can even put some whipped cream on them because the whipped cream has very few carbs, and now they make a keto whipped cream that has 0 carbs. So you can use them as a dessert. You can use them like a pancake or a waffle. And you can put some sugar-free syrup on them, put some pecans over them. And again, if you want, you could even put some whipped cream on them. And there's your Saturday morning breakfast. Have it with a couple of sausage links, and boom, you're good to go. You haven't spiked your glucose. I do this a lot. I do have breakfast on Saturday mornings normally. And this is one of my go-to Saturday morning breakfasts, this plus a little sausage. You can use them, as you saw, as a bun for a hamburger. I never use the top and the bottom, not because they've got so many carbs, but I just don't need them. They're pretty filling. You can use them for all sorts of things. So about anything you can use for bread, you can use these. You can make a BLT, bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich on these. Just all kinds of things. The substitutes that were made, to me, they seem about as good as chaffles. And so I've got no problem with that. I may experiment more, but I don't find them superior to the chaffles that I make. I find them maybe equal. I haven't eaten enough of them yet to decide whether they have reached the measure and the level of a chaffle in terms of taste. But they're not going to have hardly any carbs. There's just so many things you can use them for. For example, with her version of this keto bread, she calls for 3 tablespoons of almond flour. But you know, there's no law of the universe that says you have to do all 3 tablespoons of almond flour. You could use 1 and use a lupin flour. You could throw in some unsweetened coconut. You could use flax seeds. You could throw in some sunflowers. Seeds like I did, hemp hearts. There's just all kinds of products, and I've got them in my pantry. I just keep adding to it. And there's just all kinds of products that are very low carb and can make a bread-like bread, if you will, or sort of bread, pseudo bread, artificial bread, alternative bread, whatever you want to call it. But the key thing is, it will not spike your blood glucose. So get a little creative, experiment, try things. You can take this basic recipe of Melanie and just make a few changes and see how you like that. If you get wild and crazy, you might want to take a couple of strawberries and put it over the top and have it as a strawberry topping on like a pancake or a waffle. Definitely can work as a bun on a hamburger, just all kinds of ways you can use them. So, who says diabetics can't eat bread? Well, I say so if you're talking about normal bread, white bread, whole wheat bread. But boy, there are sure some alternatives, and that's what I want to leave you with today. My friend, don't think you're dietary life is over now that you're diabetic and you can't eat a lot of carbs. There are alternatives that are quite tasty, quite good, but you got to do a little research. You got to think, you got to experiment in the kitchen. I'm not a natural cook. I have hardly ever cooked until I got challenged by diabetes. But now I do a little basic cooking so that I can enjoy my diet, and I do. I enjoy my diet, and you can too. If you've been helped by this Beat Diabetes channel, consider making a financial gift to us through the link in the description. We have created hundreds and hundreds of videos to give you the tools to beat diabetes. It's a lot of work, and we've spent significant money in purchasing equipment so that our videos would be high quality. We see this work as a ministry, and it is our desire to break the chains of diabetes over your life and the lives of many other people throughout the world. If you can afford it, your financial gifts mean a lot to us and bless Benedict and me in a big way.